So today I have two videos I'm filming for y'all. I'm going to do a classic smoky eye, and then I'm going to go into very deep depth of how to apply your foundation, highlighting, contouring, strobing, and baking. I did have a little bit of issues with the lighting, so I may have to refilm the contouring one once I go back through the footage, but I did go into deep depth about what to do, why you do it, what it does, what brushes to use. But honestly, it doesn't matter what brushes you use in the long run, because it's just what's going to be best for your face, what works best for you. If you like one brush and it's a foundation brush to do your contour, do it. Do whatever makes you happy. I did not use cream products for the contour. I just used a regular powder, mainly because I do not like cream products, and that's just my personal opinion and my personal preference, but whatever works for you, works for you. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get into it. So a lot of y'all asked me just how to go over the basic application of makeup, and there's not as many steps. It just depends on how technical you do or do not want to be. But one of the most important things to do is to actually moisturize your face before you put anything on. So I go in with the Mary Kay Botanical Effects, and you can get as much or as little, just depending on what type of skin you have, oily or not oily. I use this one, and I also use the the Purity line that you can buy at Ulta and Sephora. I want to say it's the 3-in-1 anti-aging one. It's a really good one, especially if you have very dry skin like I do. I do put it on at night, especially under my eyes, because that's an area that I get very dry very easily. So this next step is by no means necessary for every day, especially if you're just doing errands or going to school. But if you really want your makeup to stay all day long, you do need to use a primer. And there's a ton of primers. It's very overwhelming. There's ones for color correcting, for photos, for pores, all different types. And the two that I normally use, for pores, I use the Benefit Pore Professional, and then for everything else, I just place all around my areas except for where I have the pore minimizer. I use the YSL Blur Primer. Alright, so this next step is another one that is by no means necessary for every day, but if you are willing, or if you want to have all of your makeup set really well and you don't have to really go for a full coverage foundation or a heavy face of makeup, I highly suggest color correcting. So the two color correctings that I do is I use the Erase Paste No. 2 by Benefit. It's a coral, so it's going to cancel out the purple, the blue, and the black that I have in my under eye areas. And then I use the Maybelline Cover Stick Correcting Concealer in green for all the redness that I have around my face. And I put it underneath my nose mainly just because that's a place that I tend to get red very easily, and that's where my makeup comes off first because I get very oily in my T-zone. So if you put it there, it is going to minimize the amount of redness that pops through if your makeup does come out throughout the day. And as of right now, you don't need to blend the product out, and that's going to bring me to our next step. And there's multiple ways to apply foundation. You can apply it with your fingers, which is not suggested. You can apply it with a brush and with a beauty blender. I use is the Tarte Kabuki brush, and then I have a beauty blender. Now, depending on which foundation I'm using depends on which brush I'm going to use. For this video's sake, I'm going to use the brush for my foundation and the beauty blender for my concealer, because that way I can show you how to use both. But it really just depends on the thickness and the consistency of the foundation on itself. But I always just put the foundation on the back of my hand. That way I don't just like plop it on, because it's better to have less on your face than too much. And then I'm just going to put dots on my face. Some foundations, like the Clinique 3-in-1 Concealer, I believe is what it's called, comes with a brush, which is really nice. That's going to be my next purchase whenever I run out of this, which I feel like is going to be within the next week or so. With those, you can still apply it with your finger if you'd like, but with those it's really easy, and with sticks, because you can just do boom, and you're done. With this brush, I find it's easy to just buff, and then places that I need extra coverage, I'll go back in and I'll actually press the product back in. And make sure that you're bringing it all the way down on your chin. This is where a lot of people get in trouble, especially if it's not their shade, if it's too light or too dark, is they don't blend in their neck well enough. So I know that on my cheeks and around my chin is where I need a lot more coverage. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit more product, and I'm going to start patting it in. And I can already tell that it's covering it up a lot more. With the blending, it just makes sure, or the buffing, you make sure that you get it all around, in every area around your face. But then the actual pressing is going to press the product into those places where you need a little bit of extra help. So now we're moving on to my favorite part, and what most of y'all ask the most of. highlighting, contouring, and strobing, and baking. Well, I'm just going to add baking in there because it goes through the whole process. So the first thing is concealing. Now there's two different types of concealing. This shade by Maybelline Fit Me, it's my actual shade of my skin tone. It's what you can use to cover up redness, or if you don't want to do color correcting, you can use it to do the dark circles. But for highlighting, I'm going to go a shade or two darker. This is the NYX CW01 shade. You can tell a pretty bit, well, probably on camera you can't, but there's quite a big color difference in these. And with highlighting, you want to go 1 or 2 shades lower because you're going to be highlighting the places where light naturally hits you. You can either go very heavy or very light, whatever makes you happy, but you're just going to do a triangle type shape under your eye. Then you want to put 3 up here, 1 down the nose, 1 on the cupid's bow if you want. I go ahead and put some more in that area where I get red, and then you're going to do a cross on your chin. Now this is where the wet beauty blender comes into play. You want it to be wet because it's going to pick up any extra product that you have on your face, which is why I really like to apply my makeup with this, because if you do go in with a little bit too much, all you have to do is just keep patting it because that moisture is going to bring all that product in. So with this, you want to dab. You don't want to buff like we did with the brush, because the thing about the beauty blender is it's going to press the product into that place. But that's why it's a lot better to use a beauty blender for under eye areas, because if you're using a brush, you're going to be smearing the product rather than keeping it in that specific place that we put it, because we put it in those areas for a reason, because that's where the light naturally hits you every day. Alright, so now that you have everything placed, what you want to do is you want to set that stuff immediately. And this is where baking comes into play. So if you don't want to be over the top and dramatic and bake your face, you can just simply set your face with a translucent or a banana powder. What baking is going to do is it's pretty much going to literally cook your face at your body's natural temperature. It's going to cook between the makeup and your actual skin. It's going to cook that powder into your skin, and it's going to pull the oils out, which is why you're going to put it in the areas where you concealed. If you want, it's normally for where you get oily. So I get oily a lot around my T-zone, so I bring it in quite a bit further than I actually need to, so I can bake those areas so they can stay for a lot longer. So all you're going to do is take that same beauty blender that you had and dip it into the translucent powder and set it onto your face. I need a lot more than this. It's a really good trick if you're going to be going out all day long and you know you're not going to have time for touch-ups, because since it soaks up all of the oil and everything, it's going to help your makeup stay in place all day long, and it will not budge. This is like budge-proof type makeup we're talking here. So while your face is cooking, this is when you can go on to contouring. Now contouring is made a lot more difficult than it actually needs to be. All it really is using a gray tone bronzer rather than a red tone. So red tone is normally what you're going to use to put warmth into your face, but to contour, you're going to use a grayer tone, and you're going to carve out the natural structure of your face. If you use a red tone and it works for you, use it. Not everybody's going to work the same. I can use 2 different ones. The Hoola bronzer is a really great one by Benefit. It's a natural neutral shade, and it works for a lot of skin tones. And then I also use the Physicians Formula. Now with Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, I can use it as a contour and a bronzer. It's just, these shades are very, very neutral. You can definitely tell that the Butter Bronzer has a lot more red in it than the Hoola Bronzer. Sorry, I'm getting all my names mixed up. So it doesn't really matter what you use, as long as it works for you, do whatever you want to do. Now when it comes to brushes, so you can use a little flat brush like this. This is the one that came with the Hoola Bronzer, and it's perfect because it's a perfect line. It makes that perfect line for you. Or I have a bronzer brush, and this is just a regular one, and I like it because it's fat, but then it's thin on both sides. Or you can use, there's little round brushes that you can use. It's honestly just what works best for you. If you know what's going to work best for you, you go ahead and use it. I find that the bronzer brush works a little bit better for me than the Hoola bronzer one, just because it's so small. What I'm going to do with your bronzer is you want to put it all over your brush, because you want it on both sides, because once you go down, you're going to want to buff it back up. So there's 2 ways to do this. You can either do the kissy face, and you're going to carve out that line that it makes, or if you don't trust that, or if you your face doesn't have a lot of structure with that, you can start at the top of your ear and go all the way down until about the edge of your eye. If you go down too far, you're just gonna make yourself look kind of droopy, and then it's gonna kind of defeat the purpose because you're not trying to thin out your face, but you're bringing out the natural structure of it, which is for a lot of people going to make you look a lot thinner. So just beat off that extra product. So we've made this line, and now what you want to do is just buff up, because if you buff down, you're going to end up just making it look a lot muddier than it needs to be, and then it's going to defeat the purpose of actually carving out that area. And you'll also want to bring it down the sides like this, the sides of your ear, and then all the way down on your neck. That way we're nice and blended. And if you want, you can bring it on the top of your forehead, on your temples, in this area if you'd like. This is really to make people, if they have a bigger forehead, make it look a little bit smaller. Now we're going to go back in with that translucent powder one more time. And this is definitely not a necessary step, but if you really want that sharp contour that you see a lot on Instagram and on actresses and models and things like that, just take that same beauty blender and you're gonna carve out underneath it. And you can leave it on there for as long or as little as you want. If you leave it on just right then and brush it right off, it's gonna do the same thing as if you leave it on for a little bit longer. So I'm going to go in and just wipe away all of this product that we have baking right now. You just wipe. Ooh. I really hope you guys can see everything that I did now that the blinds are closed. I hope everything looks okay. So my favorite part, and what a lot of you guys need help on, but it's really not that hard, is strobing. So I'm going to go in with the Becca Jaclyn Hill Holiday Palette. You can use any type of brush. You can use a big brush like this. You can use a fan brush. You can use a small little tapering brush like this from Morphe. My favorite one is the Sona Kashuk one, just because I feel like it gets the product on there a lot better. So I'm just going to mix these two highlight shades, and you can either just go in with it like this and just put it on the tops of your cheekbones and bring it up to the temple. Or if you want to be a little bit more dramatic, which is what I always like to do, especially with highlight, spray it with some setting spray or MAC Fix Plus, and you're going to get a lot more shimmer and shine out of that highlight. Or you can just continue to go in and pack it on. We don't judge. And then you also put it on the nose, tip of your nose, and then your Cupid's bow. And now that we have the face done, what you always want to do, no matter what you're doing, if you have any type of product on your face, you want to set it with a setting spray. That way it does not budge or move. It is not sweat proof. I can tell you that. I have not found one that's sweat proof, but this is going to help it actually stay in place all day long. A lot of people like to do this. You can highlight your brow bone. So I'm just going to take a small brush from Morphe and take some more of that highlight that we used and highlight the very tips of my eyebrows.